Well, good afternoon, Cowboys Nation. How are we doing today? Welcome to Starstruck with Mack. A little bit up on the injury report. Dallas has actually activated one of their players from the injured reserve, and unfortunately, it's not Lawrence or some of the names that we were anticipating. And the amazing thing, Michael and I was talking about it the other night. Somebody we almost forgot that was even on the team, and that's offensive tackle Chuma Adoga. Welcome back to the active roster. Uh, Entering this practice window here. So, injury report. It almost seems like that we're almost in that realm of Dallas is not officially tanking. They're not anticipating a playoff run. So we're starting to see a lot of more names on the injury report that, maybe veterans that take time off to allow the coaches and staff and the front office to see younger players, whether that be Martin, Diggs, who have you, Deron Bland. There's been suggestions that Deron Bland just, not by staff or and all, but over the World Wide Web that, Deron Bland just sit out the entire year and let that foot get healed. I don't know. It's a year gone. It doesn't add a year to his contract. It's a year gone. So what takes place? They look at, different, and Michael even wrote up a really good article with you over on Fans First Sports Network. What's next if McCarthy's not retained? And unfortunately, for McCarthy, I think he was kind of given a unloaded, a hand that was not necessarily one you want to sit down at the poker table with. So, it's Saturday afternoon. The game's Monday night. A lot could develop on the injury front in between then as they get ready to take on the Houston Texans. And I'm all for, seeing what you got. And in that realm, we need to see what we got with Trey Lance. I do believe that, he gives us an opportunity to see what we get from that investment of a fourth round pick, whether it be to potentially maybe sign for him to an extension to serve as Dak's primary backup in the future if he can if he can handle that role, or recoup some comp picks if he signs elsewhere. And there are going to be some players that are playing in their last days, whether it be like the rumor mill says of DeMarcus Lawrence or even I've even seen the name Jordan Lewis, because the Jordan's contract will be up soon. But there's several players that may not be here next year. A third of your team, it's a known fact that a third of your team usually doesn't stay from year to year. So, you're basically replacing a third of your team. Now, a lot of those guys are role players, rotational guys on short-term contracts, and that's how you navigate the salary cap. But what's next year's team going to look like? Who's going to be coaching next year's team? Is it going to be Slowick? We're getting ready to face again with Houston? Is it going to be one of the current staff members? Maybe Al Harris? Who knows? He will get an opportunity to give his first time head coaching, which would I love Al Harris, and I love what he's done with the secondary over the years that he's been there under Dan Quinn and now even still. But, he's never held a coordinator's position. They basically promoted him to assistant head coach to give him more overall responsibilities, but also to keep other teams from poaching him. Would it be Zimmer? I'm not. If it is, I'll pull for him, of course. But I'm not a big proponent for hiring Zimmer to take over the team. If you are, then you need to give him the reins right now. And they've already said that they're not going to have a coaching change in mid-season. If they were, I would almost put Harris in there to see what he does. So it's going to be a weird rest of the season. There's not going to be a lot of games that we're going to be favored at. We knew that when Dak went down. But whether they win, I remember the year that Aikman's rookie year, 1-15. That was a tough season. The only glimmer was Steve Walsh replaced Aikman due to injury for a game, and we actually won against Washington. So that was the highlight of our season. So it's one of those things where, Jerry, we're asking as fans, give us something to hang our hat on. Give us something to give us hope for next year. This year may be a wash, but give us something. Give us is that going to be a top 10 pick? Who knows? Seems like New York is tanking for maybe Shedeur Sanders or maybe the kid Ward out of Miami. Who knows what they're doing? I've also, Michael and I've kind of, jokingly said tank for Travis. I don't think we're going to get Travis Hunter. I would love to have him on this team because the kid can play both ways, wide receiver or cornerback, and he excels at both. Could be an all-pro at either position. I just don't know that that's going to be in the realm. Jacksonville seems potentially could land him, as our number 1 overall draft pick. It very well could be him and Sanders going 1 and 2. But quarterbacks tend to go up there at the top year in, year out, deservingly or not. They tend to make that number 1 and number 2 spots, number 3 even, seem their territory. Those that don't have a franchise quarterback are searching for one. We had ours, the team wasn't necessarily performing to our expectations early on, even with Dak, but without Dak, as the season progressed, we're going to see how sorely we miss him. Because with Dak, I always said, him and Romo, they gave you a puncher's chance. I know we're coming off the heels of the Paul and Mike Tyson fight, and stuff, but they give you a puncher's chance. You have a chance at winning anytime they're on the field. So, it's kind of depressing that, you don't necessarily see that opportunity right now, and probably won't for the rest of the season, except for maybe 1 or 2 games, if that. That we actually have a chance. Because if we're checking down at 2 yards a pass, we're not going to win many games. We do not have Derrick Henry. We do, and no offense to Rico Dowdle or no offense to Zeke Elliott, this team was not built for that type of play. Some can even say, what were we built for? We're not sure because Jerry, this past year, even historically, the Dallas Cowboys have they're not, since Brandon Carr, they've not been big spenders during free agency. Last year, we got kind of spoiled with the Gilmore and the Brandon Cooks trades, but those were actually trades. They were not going out and signing a free agent. And Dallas doesn't buy in that first few days. They take and go into the bargain aisles and they try to get that. And I fully get that. When you've got stars, historically, they built through the draft as of late. But they've been successful in their draft picks. It's getting those people to re-sign, and part of that is re-signing them a little bit earlier than they're doing, rather than dragging things out. They need to probably re-sign them a little bit earlier to kind of cut down that cost. Because regardless, if you've got, like in Dak's case, you've got a franchise quarterback. The he's your face of your franchise. Some fans love him, some fans hate him, some fans are in between. Very few of those, because it's kind of like the Dallas Cowboys. You either love them or hate them. Very few people are about them. So I mean, the key is they're signing him early, because the next guy's going to sign, and it's who signs first that signs for less, because the next guy's going to try to top that and set the market, I was actually surprised that CD Lamb come in under Justin Jefferson, especially after the year Lamb had last year. So, I mean, right now we've got two of our top players pay wise that we're not getting anything out of. I mean, yeah, CD Lamb is performing and he's on the field, but we're passing the ball 2 yards, folks, with Cooper Rush, and hopefully that doesn't continue going forward. Hopefully that was a outlier in the process, because regardless of whether we want a top 10 draft pick or what, I'd love to have a top number 1 overall every year, but not the record that gets it there. So, I mean, I want to see Dallas win. That's the reason I sit down in front of the TV, and that's the reason I cheer for them, is I want to see them win week in and week out. Because like we had spoke on Dad and the Boys, I watch every minute. And the reason being is because I know that my chances to watch them play are going to be limited. And I thoroughly enjoy watching the Dallas Cowboys. I watch the draft from pick to pick, from first of the Mr. Irrelevant. I watch anything about the Dallas Cowboys. Watch the scouting combine, because I know they are. Simply because I want to see and I want to be informed about my team. And that's it. They are my team. There is no other team in the NFL for me. I do pull for the Blue Devils and the App State Mountaineers in college football, but the NFL, it's all about Dallas. And if you're out there and you're playing a game, how does it affect Dallas? And some people go, well, I guess you don't watch the Super Bowl. Yeah, we watch it, not necessarily as intently, but again, it's like, okay, San Fran's in the Super Bowl. I don't want them to get a leg up on Dallas. Philadelphia's in the Super Bowl. I cannot pull for Philadelphia unless it benefits Dallas in some weird way. So, I mean, how does it benefit the Cowboys? And that's how I approach every game, So it's weird watching 2 AFC teams. It's totally weird because neither one of them losing or winning is going to really benefit the Dallas Cowboys, unless they're playing the Dallas Cowboys later, and it could result in a weaker opponent moving forward. So as far as injury report, I mean, there's several guys, whether or not they'll miss the game this week or not. There's several on there. Several did not practice. Some are in limited position. Some of them are at full capacity. And we're just going to wait and see, because we don't know if this is going to be more of, let's see what we got in the younger guys, our depth. I was kind of impressed with Awesome Richards actually last week, that, how well he held up in the game at left tackle, replacing Guyton. And that's nice, because he could provide quality depth going forward, and see what happens. I don't know if we're going to be looking at offensive line in the draft next year. We definitely could use it, because let's face it. I mean, I love you, Terrence Steele. You're a Cowboy, but you struggled this year. Well, folks, I've been told that I need to take a quick commercial break and allow our sponsors to promote their items. And so for those of you listening on Fans First Sports Network or Boom Broadcasting, we will take a quick break and we'll be right back with continuing of my top 100 players. Welcome back to Starstruck with Mack Davis, the face that made the face. So for those of you just tuning in, I'm down to pick 80 of the top 100. And the way I've been doing this is every week I've been giving five, going in segments of 5 to kind of give brevity to the show. The one rule that you have to be on the team, you have to wear the star for a year. You have to be on the team for a year. It's no coaches involved as far as the Cowboys coaches. Because if we did, we know who would be number one. That'd be Tom Landry. Um, you know, he's the ultimate cowboy. And of course, Jimmy Johnson and, Bill Parcells brought us back. And I love Mike McCarthy. I hope he gets to stay around and turn this thing around. And I think he can if given the opportunity. I just don't think that he'll be afforded that thing. And it's more about getting fans excited again. Because let's face it, the morale on this in the fan base is really low right now. Without further ado, I'm going to bring in the player that dons the 80th slot currently. And that is none other than our current safety, Malik Hooker. I liked Hooker when he was at Ohio State. I mean, he got drafted and went to Baltimore. Well, I mean, the Colts. I'm sorry. I'm an old boy. I remember the Baltimore Colts now that play in Indianapolis. Baltimore is now the Ravens, the old Cleveland Browns. But Malik Hooker, the joke was, Jerry's got to have a hooker, but Malik's performed very well. He's come back, he at the beginning of his career being a first round draft pick, he struggled with injuries. But I thought he was an awesome talent coming out of Ohio State. And Ohio State's one of those teams on the peripheral that I do root for. It's like we was watching the game the other day and Michael goes, "Dad, who are you pulling for?" Because we've got Ohio State versus Penn State. I was like, for me, because I'm the winner in this, I don't have a loser in this dog fight. And they play, in the same conference. And, Ohio State won, and I was happy for them. Penn State, I've always rooted for them. Probably my favorite college player of all time is John Cappelletti. And one of my favorite movies and books of all time is Something for Joy, the story life of John Cappelletti. John went on to play for the Los Angeles Rams and the San Diego Chargers in his professional career. But it was one of those stories that if you've never seen it, go out and try to find the movie. You can probably obtain it on his website. But Something for Joy was an inspirational book and movie about the life and times of John Cappelletti and his younger brother, Joseph. So I've always been a Penn State fan since that point. Even it kind of hurt when they did Papa Joe the way they did. I just think that was a terrible situation. To me, he's still the all-time winningest football coach in college. And rightfully so, even though they took that record away from him. And so I've always been a Penn State fan. I've always loved Ohio State. And Malik Hooker was an awesome talent coming out of college. So I pulled for him, even when he was in with the Colts. But when he decided, again, if he hadn't been injured and dealt with those, we probably wouldn't never got him here in Dallas. And he's been a legit quality starter for our team. And again, this is not about making Pro Bowls. This is not about being all pros. This is about my bias, my fandom And Malik Hooker is just one of those guys that goes about his business the right way. And I thoroughly enjoy watching play. Um, I hope that he stays beyond this year. There's been talk that him and Donovan Wilson could be on the way out. And that's a little bit about, this adjustment to this defense, plus also what has coming up behind them in uh, Marquise Bell and Wanye Thomas. I mean, two awesome young talents. Uh, at number 80, Malik Hooker, hopefully he'll be here with the Cowboys long enough to move up in the rankings. But we will have to wait and see. Uh, but again, awesome talent. And I thoroughly enjoy watching him play. The next one at number 79, old school Ralph Neely. Wow. I mean, if you think about it, what the line, the offensive line and the defensive line of the 1970s, that's the reason we were competing with the Pittsburgh Steelers throughout the 70s, to Super Bowls and seeing who was the team. The 80s, it started out with the San Francisco 49ers, but we kind of went in a downturn and then came back in the late 80s. But the early 70s, my youth, I got to root for people like Ralph Neely that was just dominant on the offensive line. Rayfield Wright, Pat Donovan, Fitzgerald. I mean, the names go on and on of guys that just were so instrumental in turning this team around through the late 60s and early 70s, bringing us to that prominence, getting us to the point where we were domed America's team. And they paved the way for that. So I thank you for those wonderful, wonderful childhood memories of going out and watching y'all dominate and protecting Roger and protecting Danny, paving the way for our running backs, throughout that period, and allowing Drew Pearson to be a Hall of Famer because y'all provided that protection. Back in that day, there wasn't a lot of, glory for being an offensive lineman. Your name was usually called when you held or committed a penalty and cost your team possessions, yards, what have you. But Ralph Neely went about it the right way. He was one of those players that just, he was awesome, and I thoroughly enjoyed growing up watching players like him lead us to our Super Bowls and to prominence in the 70s and when we became America's team and watching how that offensive line and defensive line of that time, just dominated. And it allowed us to have that glory. Thank you for those childhood memories, Ralph Neely. And that's the reason you're at number 79. Now, whether you stay there or not will depend on those that come after you. And moving to number 78, it's kind of ironic that his number is 78. Mr. Leon Lett. Oh, wow. What can you say about Leon Lett? A lot of people think of the two plays that kind of negatively made light of his 9-year, 10-year career. And that was the Super Bowl fumble as he was showboating a little bit. And the other one was a block kick in Dallas in an ice storm of all things against the Miami Dolphins. I don't think at that point we had ever beat Miami and Dan Marino. I'm not for sure about that. So you can fact check me if you want. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. But up until that game, we had never, if I'm not mistaken, we had never beat Dan Marino and the Miami Dolphins. and we were on the precipice of doing so. And Leon slid and accidentally touched he touched the football, and Miami recovered it and was able to come out victorious in that game. But I remember the player. I mean, Leon Lett was a monster. I mean, there are monsters and there's monsters. There's dudes. If you're an offensive lineman and you have to go up against Leon Lett day in and day out, that's not an enviable task. I mean, and he just had that outgoing personality too for the media and for the fans. But what a monster! I mean, and you could just see him. I mean, destroy offensive linemen. You know, he made our offensive linemen better from practice. You know, they had to go up against him day in and day out. You know, iron sharpens iron. So I mean, Leon Lett was yeah. I mean, he was a beast, and he later come back recently and actually helped coach defensive linemen on the team. I know that right now, I know that Greg Ellis is doing that role, but he was a defensive line coach for the team not too long ago. And, you know, I wish him nothing but the best, but man, what his career should never be viewed over those two plays because there was so much more to Leon Lett. And moving right along 77, so we can get you folks back to where you need to be. Eugene Lockhart. Eugene. Talking about beast. You know, and you know, I know there's some younger folks out there that play Madden and everything. You know, when I play Madden or used to play Madden, and I developed my own team, there was one number that always symbolized linebacker, and that was 56. You know, so I mean, Eugene Lockhart donning 56 in a Cowboys uniform, I absolutely love. You know, and unfortunately for Lockhart, he come in a time where we were just in the downturn for the franchise. You know, after 83 or so, we really started struggling. And then all of a sudden, 1990, you know, you got Jimmy Johnson and the Cowboys, and we're starting to build back. And all of a sudden, he's gone. You know, so for him to be the warrior that he was in that period, and to leave it out on the field, you know, and this is one thing that you'll notice amongst the players, you know, is that if I notice that you're a warrior, and I don't ever have to question your contribution, your willingness to leave it all out on the field. You move up in my book. You've got a spot. I'm not going to lie. I was reviewing as I was sending Michael the 5 for this week. I was sitting there reviewing, you know, because you're thinking about the top 100 players that you are a fan of and an organization, and you're like, I don't want to leave somebody out. And I was sitting there reviewing the list to make sure that I hadn't left anyone off the list that I truly love, because I mean, I love them all, but I mean, who do I love the most? You know, and so you're sitting there like, it's kind of like the invite list at a party. You don't want to leave somebody out, you know, that you really like. You know, so who did I leave anybody out? And I was sitting there going through the list, and I was like, wait a minute. And I'll give you a hint. He's not been addressed on the list, so he is in the top 100. I don't know exactly where he'll land eventually, but while I was reviewing this list, CeeDee Lamb, after the last few weeks, jumped 10 spots. He jumped 10 spots because of the heart I have seen from that young man and the desire to want to win, the frustration from not having the best game, frustration from drops, frustration from that. But it's that desire. A lot of people look at it and they go, "Oh, he's whining, he's crying, he's a prima donna." I look at it and I go, he doesn't like to lose. He doesn't like to be less than the best that he can absolutely be. And he's going to leave it all out on the field. When he hurt his shoulder, his AC joint, and he still got out there and he was diving on the ground to make catches. You moved up. He's yet to be addressed in this list, but be assured, when his lane does land, he will have exceeded 10 spots where I originally had him placed. Again, like wrestling, if you're a wrestling fan, you know the rules. Card subject to change, baby. Card subject to change. The famous words of a promoter. But Eugene, man, you played during a time where the franchise itself was not doing the best. I mean, I don't know if you got any words of wisdom for these guys. If you do, please come back because we're struggling. If you got any words of wisdom from the fans, please put it out there on social media somewhere. Because again, we're struggling. I mean, we bleed blue, but right now our hearts are bleeding because our boys are struggling, and there's nothing other than cheering for them that we can do. So I say this: if you're a fan and you have seats at Texas AT&T Stadium, show up and support the boys. Don't be selling tickets. Do not let our stadium become a home stadium for the other team. If you ain't got nothing to cheer about, stay quiet. That's fine. But you should be loud when our defense is on the field. Support our players. Support our team. Don't try to line your pockets with money. And moving along to number 76 is none other than your current kick returner / wide receiver, Cavante Turpin. That boy's just lightning in a bottle. I was so glad that this year he actually got his first return touchdown of his career. So Dallas should have some, based on the collective bargaining agreement, they should have him in the mix for the next couple of years. So Cavante, you could continue to move up. Dude, you're a buck nothing. I mean, and you get out there and you run and you run those routes and you know that you're going to get leveled, but you don't hesitate. Man, what heart. And dude, when the ball gets in your hands, again, you're electric. And it electrifies the crowd. And when you take off with the ball, it's like on any given time, 6 seconds later, you could be in the end zone and I could be cheering and I get excited. And you've had some close ones. You've actually had more close ones this year, even after. And it kind of pumps up the crowd. It pumps up the players and it pumps up none other than yours truly. Because again, regardless of how we struggle, I don't like to lose. And I'm pulling for my Cowboys to win. Whether it be we finish 11-6, 10-7, 9-8, I don't like to lose. I don't want a top 10 pick. I mean, other than if we could get that just gifted to us, I don't want a top 10 pick because of a record. I want to win week in, week out. And you provide that opportunity every time you touch the ball of putting points on the board. And I appreciate it. And you don't hesitate. I mean, you know you got some speed, and you know when you catch the ball, you're gonna get hit because again, you're buck nothing, man. You know you're a small frame body, and those hits have got to hurt. And I've never been small. I mean, I've always been a big youngin, and so I mean, I don't know what you like. I couldn't run a 40 in 5 minutes, let alone now. Back in the day when I was in the Army, I could. Uh, you know, uh, I could do 6 minute miles then, but right now I couldn't drive it in 6 minutes. Uh, so I mean, watching you in your speed, wow, what a treasure. Well, folks, that's all I've got for you this week. I look forward to sharing the rest of the top 75 with you in the weeks to come ahead. But if you've watched Boom Broadcasting and my son, Michael Davis, you know that he's a huge sports fan, and his true love, other than the Dallas Cowboys, is wrestling. And two of his favorite stars, I'm going to kind of combine their sayings right now. And that's, hey, yo, let me talk to you. This is a tough year, and it ain't what we expected. Don't ever forget that whether they're 1-19 or 1-15, now I guess it'd be 1-16, or they're 16-0, 17-0, it's your Dallas Cowboys. They deserve your love. They deserve your fandom. And they deserve your support. Because it ain't Jerry's Cowboys. He owns the team. He pays the bills. But we've got the blood, the sweat, and the tears in the game. It's my Cowboys. It's your Cowboys. Give them all that you got, just like you expect the players out there to give all they got and the coaches to give all they got. And you can't control what they do, but you can control what you do. And I say give it all. I thank you for another week of your time. And in the augmented words of the late Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, born second to none and has no equals, America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. Number one in your fandom, number one in your hearts. God bless you. I wish you the best, and I'll talk to you next week on Fans First Sports Network and Boom Broadcasting. Please go get your apparel at Fanatics through the link provided in the chat. God bless you, and you have a great week. And go Cowboys.